2 Kings 9 to 11. Our text adds the king Jehu to our list of kings. He is a king of the north. He seems to have been a military commander of Ahab. When he assumes the throne, actually Ahab is dead by this time, so is Ahaziah in the north, Jehoshaphat, and Jehoram as well. These are all dead at this time. The first thing that we learn in our story is that Jehu kills Joram because this is a coup, and he will begin then the fourth and longest lasting family dynasty in the northern kingdom. He also kills Ahaziah. Now, what he seems to be doing is clearing out or killing off the entire family of Ahab, because remember, at this point we have had intermarriage between the north and the south. Athaliah, he does not kill her. She is the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. So Ahaziah is the grandson of Ahab and Jezebel. So that's how they're related, and that's why Jehu seems to be willing to kill off Ahaziah. He's a very cruel man. There's numerous stories in our reading of just terrible cruelty. He also kills, or has Jezebel killed, by having her thrown out a window. And so again, notice he's killing off everyone who is left, really, of the Ahab dynasty. The one person left over is Athaliah. We learned of her death earlier based on the story of Joash, which is down here. One other thing that Jehu does, and this is what I'd like to conclude with in this discussion, is that he destroys, or he attempts to destroy, the Baalism that Jezebel brought in from Tyre or Sidon. And remember, this is the Baal of Tyre, we think, because again, Baal is just a standard name. It's a title, not a name for a deity. So like we think of Elohim as a title, the Canaanites thought of the word Baal as leader or God in this case. It's Baal, I counted it up. Baal occurs about 90 times in the Old Testament when referring to a deity. So very common. And in this case, what Jehu seems to be purging from the land is worship of Baal of Tyre, the god that Jezebel brought in. However, what's interesting is it says that he did not clear out. In fact, he recommended the worship of Jeroboam's god. Remember back when Jeroboam, who is the head of this he was one of the first kings, or the first king of the northern kingdom, he set up altars in Bethel and then way up off the map in Dan. And he recommended that his people worship there instead of going down to Jerusalem. Clearly an anti-Yahwistic religion. We're never told exactly which God is being worshipped here. Certainly it's reminiscent of the calf incident down in Egypt, or coming out of Egypt, as Aaron in Genesis 32 said, "These are your gods, O Israel." And that was seemingly a god from Egypt that they were aware of. It's interesting that early Christian writers like Joram, several early Christian writers, recommend that the god that Jeroboam was worshiping was the same as the god Apis, which is from Egypt. So let's say that's true. Again, we have very little to go on, but let's say that what Jehu was recommending was not to worship this Baal, but to worship this god at this point named Apis. What we have, and I think this is very good to understand when it comes to the story of Scripture, is that there is nothing to recommend that gods of the ancient world, or of, shall we say even of right now, like each other. In fact, it's, I think, based upon the reading of Scripture, I would agree with the readings of, or the writings of C.S. Lewis, and I would recommend Screwtape Letters at this point, where he has the pretend conversation between two demons. What he mentions and what he keeps going through that entire series of essays called Screwtape Letters is the idea that gods hate each other. They're full of jealousy, anger, rage, and so forth, not just toward God or Yahweh, but toward each other. And so I think this is a good example of where Jehu does not like this God, but he does approve of this God over here. So divine patronage, turf wars, tribal jealousies, I think these are all working together at the same time, so that when, for instance, when when a country goes to war against another country in the ancient world, they're doing it with their gods in mind, and thus a competition between these gods. And so it's very true, I think, again, as we continue to see the story, that when we deal with these kinds of gods, whatever their names are, again, I think these are invented from the human side, but I think these gods, from what we can tell, are primarily concerned with wanting human worship. They will do as much as they can, in other words, to keep us humans, whoever the humans are, to keep us from worshiping our Creator, Yahweh. They also, it appears, want to keep us from worshiping other gods as well.